We had some farmability changes in Marvel Strike Force recently, and there is one that I think we really need to take a closer look at. Perhaps you recall there was an in-game mail, and as we go to the game, we'll take a look and see what has changed. So the last node there in Nexus Hard Mode 6.9, we have Ursa Major there, so he's part of the Winter Guard. So we're able to farm him, start getting that Winter Guard team up to max status as the free-to-play players. As we head over to the character section, we see we have Darkstar there. Again, she's the other new member of the Winter Guard team. We can start getting her up free to play as well. Now, when you think about Winter Guard, right, they don't have 3 new members. Most teams have 2 old members and 3 new members. Winter Guard does not have that. They have 2 new members and 3 old ones. So who is a 3rd member that's now made farmable? Well, again, if we didn't read the in-game mail, it was conveyed that Ares is now in the Spotlight Raid Orb. Ares is a older character. He wasn't farmable before, so people were making some noise about that. And so now they put him here inside of the Spotlight Raid Orb. That means every time you pull a Spotlight Orb, you're going to get 5 Ares shards. Admittedly, when I first saw this, I was a little bit upset. I'm a little bit concerned because things like this happen when sometimes people in the community, they get a little upset. They're like, well, hey, this character isn't farmable. They start putting pressure on Scopely to make the character farmable, which is good. People need that if they want it, that is, if they want it. But when we put him in a Spotlight Orb like this, people that don't know, they might think that he's a brand new character, and so they go ahead and invest in him. And he's not a new character. He's an older character. Okay, so people sometimes just have the mindset that, hey, it's good for new players. And I always push back against that logic. Why? Because just because something's new or just because now it's available doesn't mean that it's good for new players, especially if the character is older. We have a comment here from Alliance Mate of Mine. He was referring to the skipped teams video, but the information that he put here is spot on. This is 100% something that needs to be looked at if we are a newer player, especially a character shows up, an older character. We need to keep this information in mind. So he says, hey brother, Steel Trap here. I think one valuable point you sort of glossed over was if you try to go back to raise a team you skipped, you'll have to contend with power creep. The team won't be as potent as they were when they first came to the game. And that is the main point. That's the point that I generally have an issue with when we try to bring newer characters forward, or excuse me, older characters forward in some way, shape, or form, and not really explain, not give any context of what the character is all about. Power creep is a thing. And again, Ares, right, he's the bookend that we're basing our stats on. So right now we are in the 3.0 era. So that's Winter Guard and above have those type of stats. Ares was the bookend before that. So the last person to kick off the 2.0 era, excuse me, the person who kicked off the 2.0 era was Ares, right? So he's literally the bookend in the last power creep jump that we had. So he is old considering what's going on. His stats are not good. So when we see a character like this, again, in the Spotlight Orb, if people don't know any better, they build a character, and the character in many ways will not help you. But there is another point that I need to consider. I do think it's important and relevant at the time. As we're moving into the age of fear, we're having more and more content that is geared around certain game modes, right? So we had the Breaker Scourge and the Storm Tower, both of those highlighting Cosmic Crucible, right? Right now we have the Jeff Tower, which highlights War. So if we're moving forward and we're going to have these events which center on some of these game modes, then it may be important for us to have characters in our arsenal that specialize in those game modes. And Ares is one of those characters. So Ares specializes in Alliance War. He doesn't have a team. He doesn't have any supporting cast. That's one of the reasons why we're a little bit concerned if we were to build this character any farther. He doesn't have any other people that shore him up. His stats are old. He's going to get eliminated relatively quickly, but he does specialize in Alliance War, and he may be a trump card that you can put down to help you when the event right, is tied strictly to war. When the war rules are on, when you activate the war rules, then maybe you can consider using Aries to help get around some very dangerous opponents. Really, it comes down to his passive ability, God of War. So notice what happens here. It says at the start of a match, enemy characters cannot spawn with safeguard, period. And if we want to be more technical with that, that does not apply simply to war. That's everywhere. So at the start of the match, if people were to come in and they are able to initiate safeguard right away, Aries simply says, no, you cannot do that. So as a plug and play character in that vein, again, he's simply taking something away from your opponent. The other 4 members of your team would have to be able to do the heavy lifting, but Aries can give you an opening that you can start working against your opponents, maybe get them under control when you weren't able to do that before. In addition, it says on spawn, he's going to gain safeguard himself for 2 turns, so kind of keep him safe. But here's the real interesting part. In war, he's a war specialist. So in war, after all other characters on spawn effects, copy and clear all positive effects, charge and revive once from all enemies to this character. The room rules in the war, that'll kick in after his passive kicks in, and this clear cannot be resisted. This will happen. So having Aries on your team can eliminate all the positive effects. He takes all the charges, he takes away all the revive once, and just leaves the opposing team as they are. So in this era where speed manipulation is being challenged, right? There's a lot of characters that simply say, no, you cannot manipulate the speed. No, you cannot manipulate the speed. Aries will still allow you to remove all of the defensive measures that your opponent has when they start the match. Speed won't be changed, but it will make them vulnerable. In a sense, you can put them under control. The characters, once again, that maybe have revive once, you can eliminate that. So if you knock that character out, he's gone for good, right? There's a lot of characters, if they inherently have a revive once, that's part of their kit. There's a lot of investment, right? When you think about characters, how they're being built, I think, right? There's kind of this, we'll have 100 points of power, we'll say. How many percentage do we put here and there? Characters that have revive once that are inherent, there's a lot of that power, so to speak, that they are designed with, right? So that they're still balanced. That goes into that, because revive once is a really big and important stat, especially if you can just make it innately. Aries takes that away. Things like safeguard, immunity, there's teams that have that, and that makes those teams very difficult to deal with. Again, Aries just simply takes that away. There's teams that have charges, and as long as the characters have charges, they can do some crazy things. If they start like that, at least Aries can simply take that away. So he does have that going for him as a character. So we think again about certain characters like Emma Frost or Cosmic Ghost Rider. So Emma Frost, she just changes speed. Cosmic Ghost Rider simply changes resistance and allows you to do things that you're normally not able to do. So in Alliance War, Aries has that option. He will simply remove all of these special effects. And if the team was supposed to spawn with those, and that's what kept the team safe, that simply does not happen. And that's what gives you an advantage. And because of that, he is worth considering. If he takes charges from a person, he gets charges. And I think on one of his other abilities, he can produce a charge for himself. And notice when he's charged, non-mythic enemies can't get charged or immunity. And you can't stun him, right? That's not how you have to put ability block on him. You can't stun him. So again, this is just another thing that helps you control the match. So just a point to keep in mind, I do have the awakened ability here, and it is that awakened ability which doesn't allow the opponents to spawn with safeguard. So in the meantime, I think he would just copy those abilities. They wouldn't lose them because he has, because they have safeguard. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. He will not be as potent without that particular awakened ability standing on his passive, which means, again, a little bit more investment, right? If you have to buy that, then you're going to need to use your either your shop credits to find that in the store and buy that. It may or may not be worth the trouble. Beyond that, building, right? So then that takes in, again, some more consideration. The amount of build that you need for this character. So what I have here, I have him at gear tier 19. You wouldn't need him like that. That's just how we had him at the time. Gear Tier 19 was the top when he came out, so that's what we have him at. Again, you wouldn't need to build him this far if you did choose to invest just for that awakened ability. You would have to see, well, how far do I have to build him to unlock it? Right? I don't know if there's a gear limit or a level limit on when you can enact that awakened ability. Since I already have it, we'd have to look and see if there's some limit on that. If not, then you could just build him to the point, really, don't put anything on him. Just give him a little bit levels or whatnot to activate that passive. You pay for the passive. And again, you're bringing him into the match knowing that he's not going to survive. It's just simply to open up that window of opportunity. So again, there is a use for him. I would be very, very cautious about building a character. But again, if we have him, if we're people that already have him, right, we might need to dust him off. We might have forgot that he's there. So as we're going forward in the Age of Fear, whenever there's an opportunity to use the war rules, and we have individuals that are difficult to deal with, reminder that we do indeed have Ares. He might help us to get through that particular node. Again, we're not advocating building a character just to get by one group of enemies, but if we already have him, he's a tool in a toolbox. Please consider it. So I would like to know your thoughts on this. Are you happy that Ares is now available? Do you not have him unlocked? Were you one of the individuals that were asking for him to be farmable? That's one of the things I'm curious about, how many people were asking. Sometimes people say, well, the community wants this. Well, what does that mean? How many people were actually interested in this character? I'm curious to know. And if you haven't seen this video right here, please check it out. It's legit.